Well, that was fast. The GOP primary appears to be over after just one contest. Let's not lie to ourselves. The results are telling us that Trump's support within the GOP is still really strong. He still controls the widest swath of the GOP voters by far. Sure, Nikki Haley has a chance of winning New Hampshire, but Trump has all the momentum now. The results from Iowa tell us a few things. One, no matter how much we kick and scream, we're getting a Trump-Biden rematch. It's going to suck. It's a choice that most Americans don't want. 80-year-old who probably wears adult diapers, or 80-year-old with narcissistic personality disorder. It's like you're being forced to choose between sardine and dirt-flavored ice cream. Dirt. Both Biden and Trump are extremely unpopular. Why can't we have nice things? Well, because our primary system allows a very small portion of the electorate to decide who the rest of us get to vote for. Under 15% of Iowa's Republicans cast ballots in the caucuses. That most likely sealed the deal for Donald Trump. It's a screwed up system in which all too often independents are left out of the process, and the more extreme candidates are rewarded by the base of the party. Think George McGovern or Michael Dukakis. Even the surges by Howard Dean and Bernie Sanders. The bases love them crazies. With Biden, it's kind of understandable. Biden is a sitting president. He controls the machinery of the Democratic Party, making it easy for him to organize and get out his vote. It's actually just one machine. It has a button that screams the word racism when you push it. And he has tons of campaign cash, most of it with no traceable connection to Hunter. Plus, the Democrats have overperformed in elections since he's been president. He has no serious challengers. No, Marianne Williamson is not serious in any way. Has her crystal energy helped her in the polls? No. Democrats understand that a competitive primary can weaken a sitting president in a general election. See Jimmy Carter and George H.W. Bush for more on that. Trump is not an incumbent, but he's almost an incumbent. No former president has ever run in a primary before. But the larger-than-life persona that any president has and the loyalty they have from the base has made Trump kind of a de facto incumbent. Which leads us to our next point. 2. Trump's repeated insistence that he was cheated out of the 2020 election worked. Many of us thought that Trump's repeated claims that he won were going to hurt him since he didn't. Those claims were obviously not true, and they led to the whole January 6th thing. But people don't like it when their favored candidate loses an election. It's embarrassing, especially when that candidate is an incumbent. A lot of people will convince themselves that they actually won in order to save face and their pride. Democrats do this too. That's pretty much what the Russian collusion hearings were about, trying to cast doubt on Trump's legitimacy. Iowa exit polls show that 68% of Republicans believe that Joe Biden was not legitimately elected. Trump's claims made him a victim, and if you think Trump won last time, you probably think he can win again. It was kind of brilliant. Trump built the stolen election narrative and convinced his voters that it was true, that he was cheated. We are a nation that abhors injustice, and if you believe that your beloved candidate was a victim of a huge conspiracy to deprive him of the presidency that would have required thousands of people to accomplish, all of whom have stayed silent up till this point, you want to set things right. You want to help him get revenge. And revenge is a big part of this too. We like to see the bad guys get their comeuppance. And in the eyes of Trump supporters, Biden is the bad guy who stole an election and is prosecuting Trump, and he will inevitably be taken down by the forces of good. Because after all,
and on June 14th, 1946, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God gave us Trump.
A huge swath of the GOP believes that liberals and establishment Republicans have been taking advantage of them for years. They feel like victims, and Trump is promising them that when elected, he will punish MAGA's enemies. Even though he probably won't do it, his base is really excited to see him try. Trump hates all the same people they hate. It's a really healthy way to decide who's going to be the leader of the free world. 3. Trump skipping the debates was a good idea. A lot of people ask, why isn't Joe Biden debating Marianne Williamson or Dean Phillips? Because he's a sitting president and no one is polling anywhere close to him. Why would he subject himself to a circumstance where he could make a gaffe or come across poorly if he already knows he's going to win? Not worth it. Same with Trump. His strategy was to stay above the fray like an incumbent president would do. Again, it worked. But it might have negative implications for Trump in the general election because... Number 4, will Haley and DeSantis supporters fall in line behind Trump? Some are saying no. They're upset. They're upset that they lost and at the attacks that Trump leveled against their candidates. The DeSantis people are especially mad at the way Trump focused on destroying the governor right out of the gate. Remember the pudding fingers ad?
Ron DeSantis loves sticking his fingers where they don't belong. And we're not just talking about pudding.
Disgusting, but apparently effective. I'm skeptical of this one too. We saw this play out in 2016. There were a lot more never Trumpers out there before he locked up the nomination, but in the end, many of them decided that Hillary was too much of an existential threat to sit the race out, so they held their noses and voted for Trump. 8 years later, a lot of those people are Trump fans. Expect the same thing to happen this year. DeSantis and Haley supporters say they won't support Trump for a while. But once the campaign starts, their hatred of and fear of societal collapse if Biden is reelected will convince them that they need to suck it up and vote for Trump, or else America as we know will cease to exist. That's the rationale. All of this being said, about half of the Iowa caucus participants voted for someone other than Trump. If those people don't come out on election day, Trump can't win. In the next few weeks, you're also going to see pretty much the entire GOP establishment get behind Trump. That includes GOP congressmen and senators and conservative media figures. Even if they can't stand the guy and think he was a terrible president. This is because they fear being punished by MAGA primary voters if they don't show loyalty, and because if somehow Trump becomes president again, they want their loyalty to him to be rewarded, even though Trump will inevitably turn on them later and destroy their political careers like he always does. Conservative media also plays a role here. Fox News, talk radio, and the many pro-Trump TV networks like OAN and Newsmax know that Trump brings in ratings because his supporters like being told how great he is. Fox in particular wants to get some of the viewers they lost to other far-right networks back after they refused to play Trump's stolen election games. I think I speak for most people when I say, what the hell are we doing here? Can't we have a choice between competent, intelligent, respectable candidates? No. Our system of picking a president is so screwed up. It's really the Democrats' fault. In the early 70s, they decided that they were going to give the voters the power to pick their candidates. They did this to appease progressives who were rioting in the streets at the time, upset about Vietnam. But is letting the people decide the best way to do it? Nothing in the Constitution says the parties have to have primaries or caucuses. We could go back to the old system where 4 or 5 party leaders go into a smoky room and pick the candidate, and chances are they would pick someone with far more broad appeal than what we're getting. We could change the way we actually vote in primaries, going more towards a ranked choice voting system where consensus candidates are a possible outcome would lessen the power that a fringe plurality may have over the process. But what's most likely to happen this time around is that a lot of people will simply stay home in November because they don't like their crappy choices. Can you blame them? As it currently stands, with people at each other's throats over politics, relationships being destroyed, the discourse reaching all new lows, maybe it's time to rethink this whole president thing. I know this is controversial and it's never going to happen, but what if we went to a system that takes the choice of who is head of state away from the people in favor of a more parliamentary system, like Great Britain has? Of course, Great Britain has a new prime minister like every week, but their leaders tend to be able to speak in complete sentences, they don't get arrested on a regular basis, and they eat their pudding with a spoon. And they only do so after they've finished their meat.
How can you make pudding if you don't eat your meat?
So that may be something to look into. I'm Dan Joseph. Catch my podcast, Dan Joseph's America, wherever podcasts are available. And please subscribe to this channel by clicking the little red widget below. I'll see you next week.